Hello and welcome to Frank 5's Rewind. This is a video podcast that takes a loving look back at the television shows that we grew up with and still cherish today. I'm your host, Frank 5, along with my co-host, Walt Flanagan.
Hello.
And Brian Johnson.
Hello. My question is, a video podcast about TV shows that went off the air 40 years ago? Why, everyone is asking. Why?
And I say to that, why not? Did I just stymie you right there?
I'm blown away. That philosophy is totally new to me. I know there's a lot of Patreon people saying, well, I can tell you why not. I like the idea. You told me you wanted to do a video podcast of old TV shows and named many that I like with Frank 5, who's an encyclopedia of knowledge.
Well, the idea came from Frank 5 actually reaching out to me many months ago, and he sent me an email.
Like, I got the stuff of a host.
Put me in.
Camera.
And he said to me, he's like, hey, Walt, would you be open to doing a podcast with me about retro TV? And at that time, I was like, we were starting a Patreon, and I was kind of busy trying to get the Sunday Jeff show off the ground, and I never really forgot about it, though. But then I had the idea, why not try a video podcast? We never have done video podcasts, right, Brian? I mean,
We haven't. As many times as Q asked us to, we told him no. And now he's not here.
But I said to myself, much like Kevin does the Fat Man on Batman, he has like interesting clips that he can throw to and things that he can bring to the podcast that makes it more visually appealing than, just three guys sitting around talking. So I thought we could put clips in here. We could pretty much do anything. We got a green screen here. Can you believe that?
It's pretty fancy, I gotta say.
This is not even a rental. This is Tell 'em Steve Dave's green screen right here.
We're going to write $50 off our taxes this year for the purchase of a green screen.
And I knew that Frank 5 had the chops, because when we went up to do a Tell 'em Steve Dave with Frank 5 up at his house, he took us into his basement and he showed us his wall of fame of TV's yesteryear. The stars of television's golden age adorned his wall, and I said to myself, that guy's got the chops. Which camera am I looking at, A or B here? That guy's got the chops.
That is an interesting room. And when you go into Frank 5's basement, like everything you've heard about him so far, you're like, I'm probably not going to make it out alive. But not only did we make it out alive, there was so much stuff from like shows that I remember loving growing up.
As well as some shows that you're like, oh, I don't even remember that show.
Don't even remember it at all. But he has tons of signed pictures from the cast of this crappy show. So when somebody is that into something, they can't help but be good. Well, I thought that before you started, Frank 5, but
yeah, this is like our fifth take.
So why do you think it is, Frank 5, that you gravitate towards television shows from yesteryear? What makes you love television, from our youth?
I think growing up, I had a love for those shows because to me, they were the perfect family, the perfect neighborhood. Everybody got along. Right always won out. I remember, coming home when I was younger and having, not a ton of kids in the neighborhood, a ton of friends to do things with. So I would come home and watch those shows. And then when Nick at Night picked them back up many years later, I was able to relive those happy times again. So,
what were some of the perfect families that you emulated?
I always loved My Three Sons. I felt that was a good show. The father was always there with fatherly advice that worked.
I don't remember that being on the air when we were young.
Oh yeah, that was in reruns
Was it?
at that point.
Reruns,
Syndication,
yeah.
definitely. It was Chip. Who was the other two?
Ernie. There was Robbie, and then Mike originally.
Who was the uncle, the surly uncle?
There was Uncle Charlie was the uncle
yes.
later on, and the grandfather started the series was Bob.
Passed away.
Yeah, William Frawley.
Yeah. So you right there, Bri, you have to know right from that little back and forth, this is a television expert, retro television expert.
Mr. TV.
He has the credentials.
Frank TV, like Willy Wonka almost.
Yes. Right? We know how that ended.
He'll be dressing like a cowboy soon.
But I mean, this is why I tapped Frank 5 for this role in Frank 5's Rewind. came up with the name. Just a little credit right there. Just one little-
Trademark.
All rights reserved.
So tell the viewers what they can expect on Frank 5's Rewind.
All right, well, I'm glad you asked, Walt, because what we're going to do is we're going to take one series per episode. We're going to delve into that series. We're going to look at what made the show popular. We're going to look at the highs. We're going to look at the lows. We're going to look at why that show was successful, what made it a part of Americana. We're also going to have a top 5, Frank 5's top 5, where I'm going to take my favorite 5 episodes from the series and we're going to discuss it. We're going to dissect it. And then we're going to end up doing a little segment that we're going to call Frank 5's Rewind, where we will reenact one of the episodes or one of the scenes from the episodes.
That's the one I'm most excited about. The Frank 5 Rewind, to reenact the scene. I mean, we get to become the characters.
Yeah,
I know that
everything.
sounds like that could be a train wreck. I know the viewers are going, what?
I sure hope so.
But to
They
me,
won't be disappointed.
that's where I'm most excited for. That's one of the segments that really made me fall in love with doing this, the concept of this video podcast.
Now, will that influence your decision to pick certain? Like, will you choose something a little easier, even if it's not your favorite?
No, we have to stick and keep the integrity of the show.
It's about the purity.
It's about the purity. It's
All
about giving the people the true, honest feel of Frank's top 5.
Frank 5's Rewind will never back down to a challenge. It could be we could be reenacting the most hard scene ever put to sitcom history. We will tackle it if need be.
He's going to take it on. So next week, that's what you were talking about when we do All in the Family, and he plays Edith Bunker getting raped in the kitchen.
Exactly.
All right. I look forward to it. I'm sure everyone does.
Me too. And for our pilot episode, we have chosen to do a true American television classic, Happy Days. I'm sure everybody out there remembers this theme song.
You are a pro.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race to you. These days are ours. These days are ours.
So, Brian, what memories do you have of Happy Days?
Happy Days came out when I was probably 7 or 8, and there was a stretch where it meant everything. The Fonz was probably my first idol that I looked up to. He was a badass. He rode a motorcycle, even though it was looked like kind of a mini bike. It wasn't like a badass hog or anything. And a lot of when they say television doesn't influence children, they're totally wrong. Because I wanted to be like the Fonz. I'll tell some anecdotes later on, but one that comes to mind is like Fonzie jumping over the barrels and shit. I set up trash cans to try to jump over on my bike, and then when I couldn't jump over the trash cans, I made my sister lay down on the ground, and I jumped over her, landed on her stomach, so I wasn't as accomplished a daredevil as Fonzie. But it meant a lot. From, say, 7 to 10, 11, it meant a lot.
I mean, you never missed an episode, right? I mean, it was Tuesday nights. You were glued in front of that television. So.
I was there. Yeah, it was probably the first show that I was very dedicated to. That I'm like you say, I'm there. How The Simpsons became later on, where every Sunday I was there in front of the TV watching The Simpsons. Probably the first show was Happy Days for me.
So, what did Happy Days mean to you?
Like Brian said, it was everything to me growing up. Tuesday nights was an event at the Flanagan household. My whole family watched Happy Days. My mom loved the show. I loved the show. I mean, a better word cannot be used to define what Fonzie was than he was my idol. I mean, I wanted to be Fonzie. Nobody wanted to be Richie, even though Richie was the most likable character on the show. Every red-blooded American boy in 1975 and 1976, I believe, wanted to be Fonzie. Screw an astronaut, screw an athlete. Everybody wanted to be Fonzie at that stage.
Women wanted him. Guys wanted to be him.
Yeah, just like me.
Just like you.
Just like me.
So what season would you have been? Were exposed to it originally? Like what year did you jump on?
I would say I was probably old enough right around season 4, maybe.
Which about 4 years in, where it's
just starting,
a juggernaut. It's a juggernaut.
It's
at that
great,
point.
but it's just getting ready. It's getting to the top of that hill.
Well, yeah, okay, but at this point though, at season 4, it's the #1 show probably in America, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like you're just getting on the bandwagon. While me and Bri were there before.
You've been there. Yes.
We're disgusted by you at this point.
Again, I'm catching up.
So we're going to talk about the history of Happy Days right now, right?
Sure.
We're going to talk give the viewers who may not be familiar with the show a little bit of insight about when it premiered and the characters and just a little bit like you're going to teach them as a professor.
Yes.
You're going to teach them a little
Be a
bit
test later.
about Happy Days.
About Happy Days. Well, Happy Days originally started in 1974. That's how old were you in 74?
In 74, I would have been 7 years old.
74. Yeah. Same thing, 7. So I was 1, so I was younger. It started out as a pilot episode for a show called Love American Style. And Love American Style was more of like a variety type show.
Vignettes, right?
Yes, exactly.
It focused on different characters every week, mostly about romance and finding love.
Absolutely.
Did you watch that show growing up, Brian?
I remember a few episodes, but not religiously. That wasn't my thing.
You don't remember like the segues between commercial breaks was fireworks, and hence what fireworks means and
Right, yeah. The metaphor right there was.
Yeah.
I probably missed it. I'm just getting it now, 45 years later.
I imagine there's some Love American Style on the screen behind us right now to
Some fireworks, maybe?
some fireworks
There's gotta be.
popping.
Unless Chuck quit and it's just a green screen the entire time.
But it aired as a vignette, and it was called Love and the TV Set. So what happened was it was Richie that we know, Ron Howard, and Marion Ross, who played Mrs. C, and Anson Williams, who played Potsy. They were the original ones. And it aired, and it wasn't that great. Nothing.
Were they playing characters called Richie,
Yes.
Mrs. Cunningham, and Potsy?
Yes,
So
they
they
were.
took those names and they brought them over to Happy Days.
Absolutely, yes. And there was also a Joni and a Mr. C. There was no Fonzie, but they were played by different actors. So then it played. Nothing really came of it. A couple years later, they ended up doing... Well, what ended up happening was George Lucas came up with a movie called American Graffiti. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yes.
American Graffiti. And it ended up becoming a big hit. Ron Howard was in it. Because of the success of American Graffiti, they decided to go back and see if they could create a show that kind of resembled American Graffiti. They remembered the pilot from Love American Style, and they just tweaked it and made it, instead of Love in the TV Set, they made it Happy Days.
So Happy Days premieres in 1974
Right.
in the Tuesday time slot, right?
Correct.
Is it a hit right out of the gate?
I believe it was. In each 11 seasons, it was always in like the top 10.
Right.
Even after some episodes that maybe weren't as good.
Now, who was the cast members? Like in that first season, who were the major cast players?
The major characters we had were was Tom Bosley, who was Mr. C. You had Marion Ross, who was the mother, Mrs. C.
Howard and Marion.
Howard and Marion, and then you had obviously Ron Howard was Richie Cunningham. Donnie Most was Ralph Melf.
Right.
I can't believe I memorized this. Anson Williams was Potsy.
Right.
And then you
what
had
about Joni?
Joni was Aaron Moran.
That's right.
Joni.
And was Fonzie in the first episode?
Fonzie was in the first episode, but Fonzie did not speak until the very, very last scene of the first episode.
Henry Winkler.
Henry Winkler
As
the
Fonzie.
Fonz.
And I believe he may have gotten that role, Brian. I don't know if you remember a movie called The Lords of Flatbush
I do, yeah.
with Stallone. They played greasers. I wonder if that movie was a big reason why Henry Winkler was cast as Fonzie.
Yet he didn't carry over the leather jacket right away. He had
right.
that little like grayish bluish windbreaker.
Yeah.
I mean,
And what's funny, no, I'm sorry, but what's funny was there was somebody else that was in the lead for getting the role of Fonzie. And I don't know if you know the
I didn't know this.
Yeah, the Monkees. You know the the singing group Monkeys.
Of course.
Mickey Dolenz, is that how you say his name? Mickey Dolenz.
Yeah.
He was
up for Fonzie?
The only reason he didn't get it was because he was so much taller than Richie Cunningham. Than Ron Howard. He towered over him.
That would have been a bigger miscasting than Mike Zapsik in a comedy show.
Now, Brian, you mentioned Fonzie in the leather jacket. How important was that leather jacket to Fonzie's elevation to becoming an iconic character in television history?
It was the single most important element possible. It was just badass. It's like, even then, you were aware of Hell's Angels, kind of, so you knew they were badasses. They rode motorcycles. They had leather jackets, and I wanted a black leather jacket, which Pam was like down on. She would be like, "Oh, hoods wear that." And hoods like because she was from the '50s, so, and she still like had that sort of that mentality, that '50s mentality, like trust the government, like that kind of crap. I wanted a black leather jacket more than anything in the world, and one day, my grandmother, great woman, who she was very involved in the church. She would go to like these. Like bazaars, they would call them, like church sales and stuff like that. And she was like, she knew how much I loved Happy Days, and she said she got me a leather jacket. And I'm like, from this moment on, I will be Fonzie.
This is going to change your life immediately. It's just a game changer. You getting a leather jacket. What grade are we in?
This would have been 3rd or 4th grade. I'm like, I go out to her car with her. She had this big old boat of a station wagon with wood paneling, and she goes into it, and she brings out this jacket, and it wasn't new, but it did have like a plastic bag on it, and she's like, "Here you go," and takes the plastic bag off, and it was a white leather jacket. It was not a black leather jacket, which. It turned out leather was not the most important part of the equation. It was an important
black
part.
played a big part of why that was cool.
Yes. I'm like, so what? Now I'm like an angel or something? It was pretty deflating.
Was it devastating?
Yeah, I would say devastating. Yeah. I've never suffered the death of a relative more than that moment when I'm like, oh my God. And like, I got to pretend I like it. I got to pretend I'm grateful. Like, it was the worst. Devastating would be.
Let's play a little what if here, Frank.
Yeah.
Let's say, now Fonzie, like we said, he was cast originally and he couldn't wear the black leather jacket because producers thought he would look too much like a hood, so they put him in that tan jacket.
Right.
Let's say they relented, and they did, and they gave him the black one, but let's say the producers went with the white leather jacket. How would have history been rewritten?
I would have gotten the black leather jacket. That's how it would have been rewritten.
But would Fonzie have become the character that he would go on to become with the black leather jacket?
I don't think he would have looked as cool as he did wearing a white leather jacket.
He would have looked like a pioneer in the disco world, right? Like, it just would not have had the same like cachet.
Impact, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
So we're all in agreement that the black leather jacket, the changeover from the tan windbreaker that Fonzie wore in the first season, them moving over to the black leather jacket made a world of difference, and probably, made Henry Winkler, a household name for the rest of his life in the role
Made
of
him
Fonzie.
a very wealthy man, yeah. The household, yeah.
If you're Henry Winkler in 1976, you are on the top of the world. You are more famous than Santa Claus. You can go nowhere and not be mobbed by people. How hard would it be not to abuse that power? I mean, you are the most coveted man in the entire world, I think.
It wouldn't be difficult at all because there would be no decision. I would abuse it. Like, there would be no decision to be made. I'd be like, this is why I did all of it. Like, this is the payoff.
So that goes to show you what kind of man Henry Winkler was. I mean, he didn't let that fame and power go to his head. He remained true to himself, which, even more props to Henry Winkler.
Henry Winkler was kind of interesting, was dyslexic.
Really?
Yes. So he had, this is something I could relate to, he had a very difficult time reading scripts. So they let him ad-lib a lot of the lines.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, like you said, I mean, like we all said, I mean, you could tell going from his Arrested Development work, the man is a genius actor, and I believe he could have. Why didn't he go into action movies after Happy Days? You think? Why? I mean, he could have left the series and become, a matinee idol, but he remained, loyal to the show and its producers and the people behind the scenes, and he stayed with Happy Days to the bitter end. I mean, he could have left, I think, and wrote his ticket, but for some reason he decided to stay.
I think it's the same reason you stay here. It's called a regular paycheck.
He was one of the few people from Happy Days that made a lot of money because he was smart. He was like what George Lucas did with Star Wars. He made it a point to have in his contract that he would receive a percentage of merchandise.
Really?
So he ended up with millions of dollars where the other cast members didn't do that. So much later on in life, the other cast members were suing Happy Days to try and get that money back.
But all that merchandise was mostly based around
Yeah.
Fonzie.
About him,
It's not
yeah.
like, hey man, do you have the shortcake lunchbox? Like, no.
He's debonair. He's suave. He's sophisticated.
He's a regular pussycat.
Fonzie with thumbs-up action that goes. Hey! Comes with a Fonzie garage complete with Fonzie's hot rod hoist and tools. And all of Fonzie's friends.
Richie Cunningham. Ralph. Potsy.
Plus the Fonzie stunt cycle that spins. They're all here in one complete set or sold separately. It's the Fonzie stunt cycle, the Fonzie garage and hot rod, the whole crew from Happy Days, and the one and only Fonz himself with thumbs-up action that goes.
Hey!
Right. I mean, let's be honest though. He had the mojo to pull that off because he is the show. Richie has left, and you've got to build that entire show around Fonzie, or there most likely isn't a show. Right. Well, we're jumping the gun here though. Let's talk about the golden age, those first 4 seasons.
Right. So what I did was I broke up the 11 seasons into gold, silver, and bronze. And what I had done was I took seasons 1 through 4 and said that those were probably more of the gold era.
Not probably is not even in
Definitely.
the,
Those are
yeah.
definitely the gold era. And then I said seasons 5 through 7 were silver, and then 8 through 11 would be our bronze era.
Right.
So the first through the 4th season, I think, is what everybody thinks of when they think of classic Happy Days excellence, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you. What about you, Brian?
I'd say so. I rewatched the pilot not too long ago, and it had like a memorable joke that I remember for decades when Richie goes out on a date and they end up playing chess, he and the date. Oh. And he tells Fonzie, and he goes, "You played with her chest?"
I played chess. You played with her chest?
And that was his first line in the show.
Was that his first line?
Yeah, that was his first and only line.
Now, do you think that was an insight into that? Like, well, Fonzie was, I mean, to say he's a ladies' man is to not do it justice. I mean, the dude would snap his fingers and girls would flock to him. But does that say that, like, he was just making out with them? I mean, he wasn't getting the second or third or even, like, home base.
At the time, I surmised that he was banging them all.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was
But
thinking.
when we watch it as an older person, you're like, yeah, he probably was just making out.
Do you remember the slang word in the 50s for knocking boots?
Whoopee?
No. The Happy Days word. It was a certain word that they
Oh,
used.
frisky?
Well, frisky was one, but it was a vodio do do.
A society gentleman would only go out with you for one reason. To have a good time, a few laughs, and a little vodio do do. I don't vodio do do. You vodio do do. I don't vodio do do. You vodio.
Oh.
Remember that, Brian?
Vodio, yeah. I do. It seems so like unnecessarily long and convoluted.
I love that word. Though.
Longer than the actual act sometimes.
So you're saying you've never used the word like, with someone you're with? I mean, I've used it on my wife. I was like, I'd like to vodeo do a little bit right now. She doesn't remember the saying, but
I did use it on an 80-year-old woman I banged once. Yeah. Anyone younger than me is like, you know what? Forget this.
Just another reminder how much older you are than they are.
They're like, as if this didn't remind me. Now you're saying this like archaic, weird shit.
Now, also in season 1, there is the mystery of the forgotten character.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, this happens only occasionally in television history where a character is introduced and then mysteriously vanishes.
Without explanation, goes upstairs to his bedroom, never to be seen again. Much like I hoped that I would do.
I believe that happened on Comic Book Men too, didn't it? Sent to his metaphorical bedroom.
So we're talking about
Chuck Cunningham.
Chuck Cunningham.
The brother.
The older brother.
2 actors played Chuck, one in season 1, a different one in season 2.
I didn't know that.
And season 2, he went upstairs to bed, and he was never seen again. Him and his basketball, they just left.
Why do you think?
Why did he never come back? Or?
Why do you think they just wrote him out just because there was just too many characters? Or
what happened originally was that Chuck was the older brother of Richie, and once Fonzie became more popular, he took over that older brother role. So there was no longer a need for Chuck.
Did you just come up with that? Is that your summary of it? Or
Will
did you
be
read
impressed if I said I just came up with that?
Very.
I came up with that.
Is that true?
Yes. I want another wall compliment. No, yeah.
Because that summary of why he probably was, written out of the show is probably exactly why. Because Richie would look to Fonzie for advice, and he wouldn't need an older brother.
Exactly. So I think one of the biggest indicators of how popular and successful a TV show is how many spin-offs it creates.
That would account for Comic Book Men's 0.
Well, Happy Days had a number of spin-offs, and most of them ended up being very successful in their own right. Can you think of any?
Well, right off the top of my head, I mean, the most successful one I would have to think would be Laverne and Shirley.
Laverne and Shirley was definitely one of them.
I love Laverne and Shirley. I don't know if you guys did, but I loved it just as much as Happy. I mean, that was a 1-2 punch, man. Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley. I mean, that was talk about must-see TV. I mean, they should have coined it back then.
And their characters were different on their show than on Happy Days. On Happy Days, they were what people referred to in a derogatory way as bimbos.
Yes.
Like if you called somebody a bimbo on that show, it's like those are fighting words.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like a slut.
Yeah, a slut. But today you can be a slut. There's no shame today, so it would be fine. But the characters are markedly different in Mork and Mindy, which was another spinoff. In the Happy Days episode, Laverne comes over. Fonzie calls her over to go on a date with Mork to show the spaceman how human love works.
Is that true? I don't remember that episode.
I don't remember that one either.
It's
probably
true.
Are
you sure?
Yeah.
It absolutely happened.
There was a 3-way crossover between Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, and Happy Days?
Laverne, Fonzie, and Mork are in the Cunningham's house for some reason. He's trying to explain to Mork how, kissing and stuff. At one point, Mork suggests that he kiss Fonzie. And Fonzie's like, whoa. And then Laverne...
That's still funny, right? I mean, that's timeless.
You could play that today, 100 years from now. I'm always going to laugh.
Let's take a look at it.
Perhaps you'd like to slide lips then.
So Laverne comes over, and she thinks Mork is weird and is like, I'm out of here. Fonzie kisses her, and she's like, okay, I'll stay. Then Fonzie goes upstairs, leaves them alone, and Mork acts like an insane person trying to, woo her. You remember, if he touched his wrist?
That's right.
That was that's his G-spot right there, basically. And he went crazy because she grabbed his wrist. So Mork appeared on Happy Days multiple times before getting his own show, Mork and Mindy?
Right.
Now, in Mork and Mindy, I mean, I'm not sure if you know this, but you should, as if you're Frank 5, from Frank 5's Rewind. Was the first episode of Mork and Mindy, did it reference anything from the Happy Days, or could you just go into it cold without knowing?
I think you could just go into it cold.
and they never referenced Happy
I
Days
don't
again
believe they
because it would have been 20 years, if not more years later.
Right. Because Mork and Mindy was set in the 80s, 70s, because she drove a Jeep, I remember.
Right. So I wonder how that worked.
Well, he was an alien. Maybe they just...
I think they're like, we
Light
don't really
speed.
need to attach it to Happy Days. Like, we're not going to bring anybody in. What a weird show, too. I didn't enjoy it as much as Laverne and Shirley.
No, Laverne and Shirley was some upper echelon television in those first couple seasons. Lenny and Squiggy were fantastic characters, brought to life by two great actors.
Would you put them in the top 5, like, TV comedy duos of all time? I mean, the chemistry was unreal.
I mean, they would have to be in the argument. Lenny and Squiggy would have to be in the argument. Speaking of top 5 lists, so
Yeah.
don't we have a segment coming up about
we do.
Frank 5's top 5?
My top 5
That
Happy
was a
Days
completely
episodes.
unintentional segue. How smooth are we?
I was very impressed.
Episode 1, how smooth are we?
This is great.
So what are the other spin-offs?
Joni Loves Chachi. We had another one called Blanksy's Beauties.
Which I don't remember.
Blansky's.
Blansky's Beauties. So not I don't remember it either, obviously.
Nancy Walker, I did some homework too, and not as much as you did. I know you watched a lot of episodes of Blanche's Beauties.
Yeah, all 9 seasons of
And what are some of the other ones?
And then there was Out of the Blue, which was
never
a
heard
little
of
bit
that.
of controversy with it as far as being considered either a crossover or an actual spin-off. And it wasn't very successful.
I mean,
either.
where is this controversy being generated? I mean, who's actually
I don't get 'em
arguing this?
Yeah, it was on the internet. It's like, was it a crossover? It was a spin-off. And it's like, I think they taped 12 episodes. They only showed 8. So it's like, who gives a shit? Like, who cares? Like, that's nitpicky, super nerd stuff.
Yeah, I think there was like one character that appeared in Happy Days that made a slight appearance in Out of the Blue. So therefore, they were calling it a spin-off. So we had the Golden Age, which is what everybody remembers. Whenever
First
you think
three,
the first 4
maybe the 4,
seasons. Yeah.
maybe season 4 if you want to be
stretch
kind.
it. Yeah.
Because I know season 4 had Pinky Tuscadero.
Yes.
I'm not
Pinky
sure.
Leather.
I'm not sure if Leather was in season 4, but there are some real memorable moments in season 4. So let's give the first 4 seasons as the Golden Age.
Right.
Let's talk about the Silver Age and the slide into mediocre. What's the
Mediocrity.
word? Mediocrity. Thank you, Brian.
So we said episodes, or I'm sorry, I keep saying episodes. We say that seasons 5 through 7 would probably be the Silver Age.
It's only 2 years of the Silver Age.
Yeah, because it went bad after that real fast.
And Silver Age basically connotates, it kind of sucks.
Does it? Silver's still pretty lofty, though.
It's lofty, but it's like, it's not as good as it was. But my parents refer to me as the Golden Age. My sister is the Silver Age, brothers is Bronze.
So what happens in the Silver Age? Any highlights for you in the Silver Age, or what makes it? More importantly, Frank 5, what made it so that in the Silver Age it wasn't elevated to gold? What happens?
I think one of the major things that happens is they move from filming on location to studios.
Right.
And now they're filming in front of studio audiences. So now you're getting more studio audience interactions.
Well, it's set up like a play.
Right.
So essentially they're performing for that audience. They're not performing for the American audience.
Right.
Well, I also feel that, and this is where you start to see the producers make the decision where they're going to go in a direction of making every cast member an exaggerated, almost cartoon version of their former selves in seasons 1 through 4. Everything becomes super cartoonish, and it feels like they are writing a live action Saturday morning program with just a bit of a tweak to make it a primetime show.
Right. I mean, definitely the acting gets more exaggerated.
Yes.
Even what Fonzie's doing, they in the very beginning with the snapping of the fingers or the hitting of the jukebox, that was kind of neat and interesting and cool. Then it just got to the point where the Silver Age, he's hitting the side of buildings and all of the power is going out. And
There was an episode where he was camping and he didn't like.
Oh, yeah.
How loud the animals were. He goes, "Cool it."
And all the animals were quiet.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, is he magic? Like, what are they trying to put out there?
They just became cartoon characters of their former selves.
Well, speaking of cartoons, they actually made a Happy Days cartoon.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mr. Cool the dog, he
Mr. Cool the
talked.
dog. They were time travelers with an alien trying to get back to the 50s.
What was the alien's name again?
It was Cupcake, a hot girl, shockingly.
Did Fonzie have control over Cupcake as well? I mean, I guess that's a stupid question.
Of course.
What were the? I mean, could they do the things that Fonzie did in primetime on the Saturday morning cartoon? Could he snap his fingers and get girls all over him?
You couldn't do the things that Fonzie did in primetime today, or even late night, or even HBO.
Let's see a clip of what was the name of the cartoon?
Fonzie and the Happy Days Gang.
I remember it. Let's watch a clip of it.
Hey, yours truly, the Fonz here. Incredible. That's the only word to describe what's happening to me and the Happy Days gang today. So you stick around. You get my drift. Whoa.
Now, as a child, I'll actually let me ask Brian this. As a child, you're watching this. Are you cognizant enough to realize the slide into what was that M word again? Mediocrity.
Mediocrity.
Are you cognizant to see it happening in front of your eyes, or you are not aware of it yet? Are you still like mouth open, grinning ear to ear, watching Fonzie, or do you see where the road is going?
By that point, I would have been 11 or 12, so I can't say for sure, but I believe that even if it wasn't on a conscious level, I would be like, I don't like this as much. I might like Fonzie still, but the what season was like the Malachi Crunch where they were like
That's season 4.
That's season 4.
That's on the cusp of things starting to turn, and I think the producers saw how popular those episodes were and how silly they became. And they made the decision, like, we're going in that direction. And it's so hard to argue against that move in that direction because it became even more popular and it lasted for over a decade. So who are we to be like, wrong decision, bad move?
No, we're no one, which is why we're not. This is why we're sitting here with this guy. We're not producing shows that go on for 11 years.
Stealing clips that we're not allowed to use.
Yeah. Totally unauthorized. Probably get sued.
We could go to jail for this.
Yeah.
You're the leader. That's why we made you the leader of the podcast.
You would have to do all those papers I signed. Yeah.
You would have to do the hard time.
Oh yeah, you're the guy. We're totally ratting you out.
Let me tell you, I'll go to jail because I'll get 3 square meals a day. I'll be happy with that. That's fine.
You're an Italian guy. Now, Fonzarelli, Italian name. Yeah. That air of like. What was that like mob influence? Do you think the whole air of like, don't mess with this guy?
Oh, I never looked at it like that.
Chachi Arcola, same thing.
Right. I guess it kind of came across as the Italians were tough. Maybe I don't know if it had anything really to do with like the mob, but I guess
which is like overtones.
Yeah, if you really want to delve into it, I mean, because you think about it, Fonzie was in a gang.
The Dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what the mob is. It's really just a gang. If there is such a thing as the mob.
I don't think there is.
I don't believe there's no such thing as the mafia. That's what we're told to say.
So the Silver Age, though.
Yeah.
Now I asked Brian. He likes to claim he was self-aware enough to realize that the show.
I'd like to believe it. Yeah, I'd like to believe it.
But what about you, Frank? You're coming in. Like, your first experiences are the Silver Age, which are not as at least in me and Brian's opinion, not as well received in our households as the Golden Age. What turned you on, and when did you know it was silly, or did you not?
I did not. I was delusional. I remember.
I'm just learning now.
It's not cool anymore. I remember snapping my fingers to my mother while we were at dinner.
Kiss me.
Shortcake.
You're making out.
And I think I wanted more, I don't know, meatloaf or something. And I remember sitting there snapping my fingers, and I went, "Ma, meatloaf!" And my father, knocked me across the side of the room. Yeah, he wasn't a Howard Cunningham. I wasn't going to get spoken to afterwards.
So, like I said, you're a bit younger than us, so you didn't realize the Silver Age was the beginning of the end. So let's flash forward to the Bronze Age, which would be seasons
8 through 11 is what I listed as the Bronze Age.
And now this is where the
horrible.
wheels fall off.
I can say definitively I was not into it.
And what's impetus?
Impetus pretty good, yeah.
Of the Bronze Age. I believe it's Richie leaving the show.
Yeah, they're starting to get other characters to pick up the slack. They're bringing in other characters. It's that seems to be what happens with these television shows that go on past their prime, so to speak, is they will bring in new blood, new characters to try and fill that void, and it just it's like Brady Bunch, Cousin Oliver. It just doesn't work.
And so to fill the void of Richie, they brought in another Richie-esque character who would play the role of the naive, not as worldly character as Fonzie, who Fonzie could play Big Brother to.
What was that, Roger?
Roger,
yeah.
Right? He kind of took Roger under his wing.
Was that Ted McGinley?
Ted McGinley.
Yeah.
He's the nail in the coffin of every series.
I've read that, but the shows that they cite that went on for many years
they
after
did.
that. He's kind of unfairly maligned.
And he goes with it. I read an interview that he did, and he said he welcomes that. He plays it up. He was on what was it? Married with Children, and he was getting a drink for Al Bundy, and because he was on, Ted McGinley was on Love Boat, he was on Revenge of the Nerds, he was on Happy Days, and he went to Al and he said, "Can I get you another drink at the bar, Captain?" I mean Fonzie. I mean, he was playing. He was having fun with it. But yeah, they brought in the girlfriend for Fonzie, Linda Pearl, I believe.
Oh, that's right. Who was a married woman with a at least an 8-year-old child, right?
Right, the girl from Poltergeist, right?
Yeah, the late actress.
Heather O'Rourke?
Yeah.
Or the other one who got strangled.
No, the one that you read, the girl from Poltergeist, they're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, she passed away as a child, but she played the role of Fonzie's what you would think was going to be inevitable, his marriage to her mother, and he would become her father, but they never did follow through with that marriage. And they also brought in, finally, after years of talking about her, they finally brought in the Jenny Piccolo character.
Yes.
The bimbo's bimbo.
Yes.
Do you think she was medically a nymphomaniac?
I didn't think she was bad looking.
No, I don't think she was bad looking either.
But
she would chase guys around.
That's a
even
nice combo.
Patsy wanted nothing to do with her. That's
He's a lot older than her, though.
So?
Yeah. I mean, look who you're talking to. I'm the Patsy of us.
But yeah, I full-heartedly agree, and I'm sure Brian agrees too, that the beginning of the end was Richie leaving and having all these new cast members come in and try to fill the void of Richie Cunningham, and it just did not work. And I have to admit that I stopped watching it because it was that bad. It was that bad, and
you turned your back.
There was nothing. There was nothing redeemable about it at that point. And
what season did Spike come in?
That was early on, and they wrote him out, and then
So he got written out pretty quickly.
Yeah, he got written out very quickly, and they brought in another cute mini Fonz in Chachi.
And then
so he was pre-Chachi.
Yes, Spike was first. Yeah.
And then in the Bronze Age, they had Billy, right? Or Danny.
Danny, towards the very end,
Yep.
they introduced. I don't know if you know this, probably, but because I didn't know it either, but because I would watch it years later. But Fonzie would adopt a young boy named Danny with a bowl haircut.
You know, I watched that episode with the kid that he was adopting, and in one of the episodes, he wanted to adopt him, and they wouldn't let him adopt him because he wasn't married, and he kidnapped the kid.
He was kidnapped?
He took him.
But he brought him back, though.
I know, but still, he took the kid, and they're like, well, we're going to give him till 6 o'clock before we call the police.
So, I mean, we've summed up the golden age, touched upon the silver and the bronze, but I think what everyone's waiting for bated breath here for is Frank 5's top 5. The top 5 episodes,
Yes.
as deemed by Frank 5.
So these are the episodes. These are the top 5 episodes that I enjoyed, growing up and seeing. Some of them might be only on this list because I just think that they're worthy of mentioning. Maybe they weren't the best, but they were iconic to the show.
I see some high season numbers on that list.
Yeah, don't ever justify your top 5, Frank, no matter who's in the room.
Okay.
This is your top 5. Already you're starting off on a bad note.
I'm already disappointed in the kid.
This is your top 5.
Okay.
It's not Brian's top 5. It's not my top 5. So no matter how much shit we give you for how poor these choices are,
which you'll
don't
let me
cave.
know.
Yeah.
All right.
Your time to pander is before and after.
Now, are these in any numerical order, or are they just?
Yeah, you know what?
All right, so we're gonna go with number 1 first.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with number 1. This is the episode that I like the best.
Okay.
So this is my number 1 episode, and for me, it was. Well, let me get the actual name here. It was. I don't. I have it as listed as Christmas Fonzie. And this was early on. It was season 2, episode 11. It was 1974, and it was from our golden age.
I not only agree with you that it belongs at the top of the list. I know, Brian, you may disagree with me, but I feel that episode that he's referring to, Fonzie's Christmas, may be one of the best episodes ever in television history. It's that damn good.
That's solid, you feel, huh?
It's unbelievable. Fonzie is shown to be anything but this mutant with supernatural powers. You feel sympathy for him. You feel sorry for him. He just comes across finally as a multi-layered character, and it is such a strong episode. It is so damn good. My favorite episode. I mean, you didn't have to. You know what? You didn't have to worry about defending your top 5.
He's got 4 more to go.
All right, but a solid choice at number 1, Frank 5. You're off to a kick-ass start here.
Thank you.
Are these your notes just for that one?
Yes.
How long did you think this was going to be?
I wanted to be over-prepared. He said to have notes and...
What was just give us some, oh my God! Show the camera some of the notes just on this episode. Hold it up. Read one off for Fonzie's Christmas.
All right, so Fonzie's Christmas. Well, I watched it and I took notes as I did it.
These are your bullet points
These
for
are
why it's great.
Exactly. Well, this is the bullet points of the whole entire show. Howard wants a family Christmas Eve with no friends, just his family.
Right.
One of the more iconic things that happened in the episode, do you remember when the automatic Santa starts mugging Richie and Howard out in the driveway? And blah, blah, blah.
What the most powerful moment in that episode.
I was so jealous.
Well, hold on a second. I don't know if we're talking about the same thing.
I bet we are.
Because Richie goes back. He goes, you know what? Dad, can we drive Fonzie up to Waukesha Lake so he can go spend time with his family, get there on time? And he goes to look in the garage.
Yeah, we're talking about the same episode, same season.
And Fonzie's eating beans out of a can that he just heated up. That's his Christmas dinner.
So he's a hoe.
Alone.
And Richie sees it, and he realizes that Fonzie's lying. I mean, why they again, I know who are we to criticize Happy Days, but why they chose to never allow Fonzie to be human ever again after that is a mystery, because it was so great. It was so powerful. Let's see it up on the green screen.
Well, I said I related to it.
Why are you jealous?
Because it was a holiday and he was all by himself.
No family.
Are you kidding? I'll sit and eat a can of beans in my garage or ravioli. But did you notice when he was getting ready to eat the bean or the ravioli, he took this little Christmas card and he just put it up on the table.
I mean, it was so damn well done.
They're yanking those heartstrings.
Oh
purposely.
Yeah, and I get it. So what you love about it is that like Fonzie's a human being. You know, he's multi-layered. I mean, they would never do it again. They would never revisit that Fonzie aspect of his character ever again. But boy, when they did it that time, it was the stuff of television magic, in my opinion.
Yeah, me too.
Do you think they're like, well, everybody else is average. We need someone that's above average, someone that like everyone wants to be but can't.
Maybe, but I mean, they went to like he said though. They went to the far extreme where he's hitting a building and the power goes off.
Right, yeah.
You know, I mean, if they had just found a middle ground between that, maybe, but they chose to make him like Superman in a leather jacket.
Yeah.
And it just, to me, it lost the magic when they did that.
You know, the other thing that I liked about the episode too was everybody was in on it, but nobody would admit it. As far as like Fonzie knew that they knew he didn't have anywhere to go,
right.
And the family knew that he didn't have anywhere to go. But they didn't say it. They kept giving him these little chores to do around the house to keep him there longer and longer so that they could give him an out and say, hey, listen, you missed your bus completely. You're staying with us now. I
mean, if this show does anything, we hope that it prompts you. If you haven't seen the episode, go find it, go watch it.
Yep.
And if it doesn't turn you into a Happy Days fan, I still want you to subscribe to the Patreon. But if it... you know what? If you're still not in the Happy Days, it's okay. Just don't cut that monthly those monthly dues on us. Don't take that on us if you didn't like
Tune
it.
in next month, maybe we'll have a better show.
All right, what's number 2? You're off to a great start.
So my second episode for Frank 5's Top 5 has got to be an episode called Richie Fights Back.
Oh man, another one, another winner.
Yeah, and I put it in parentheses because as Richie saying, "Don't ever grab me again."
Yeah.
And
remember that, Brian?
With such emphasis, don't ever grab me again.
Don't ever grab me again.
And this was 1975, and it was, in my opinion, what I consider the golden age. And it was season 3, episode 6.
And this is one of those episodes that was filmed on a studio lot, but still was at that point where they weren't going for the cartoonish angle.
In the episode Richie Fights Back, Richie is harassed by a couple of bullies at Arnold's.
One of them is Jeff Conway from Taxi.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's one of the
where he ended up.
And naturally, he asked Fonzie for advice on what he should do as far as dealing with bullies.
Ralph and Potsy and Richie were not fighters, as we see in this episode. Definitely.
Or lovers.
Go watch it. I'm telling you, it's television done right. Nothing like it is on television today, in my opinion. It's so well done.
Well, one of the things that really made me laugh in this episode was Richie was practicing being tough.
Yes.
Don't grab me again. He's gritting his teeth, and he's at the dinner table.
Yeah, he's at the kitchen table.
With his family, and he wanted oatmeal, and the mother, Mrs. C, made something else, and he went oatmeal, and he started pounding on the table, and that made me laugh out loud.
I don't know why you were so scared to read off your top 5. This is a great top 5 so far.
Oh, thanks.
What's number 3?
So number 3 is a Fearless Fonzarelli. And Fearless Fonzarelli is the one where he jumps the trash cans in Arnold's parking lot.
Another great episode.
This is another golden era. Season 3, episode 3, written in 1975. Fearless Fonzarelli.
How important?
It was a 2-parter.
And Bri, you mentioned earlier, but just one of those episodes that you'll never forget, right?
Never. Like I said, for anyone who's like, TV doesn't influence kids, it 100% does influence them to do stupid stuff, like on a bicycle, try to jump over garbage cans.
Do you remember the end of part 1? They freeze frame
frame
of him in midair. How long a week was that? It was torturous.
It was a year. It wasn't a week. Yeah. What'll happen? Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, at that time, I would have been like, so if that's season 3, I'm probably
75.
Yeah, probably. I'm probably around 10.
No,
that
you're.
would have been 77, season 3, right?
This was in 75.
Say 1975.
Okay, so I would have been 8.
8. You're so influential. I remember, like.
Well, you're like, what's gonna happen? It's
Yeah.
like, duh. You know, like you know what's gonna happen.
What an episode. Again, man, like strong selections, Frank 5.
I liked in
You
particular.
picked things we agree with.
Thank you. I like in particular, believe it or not, is the dialogue between Fonzie and the doctor.
It's part 2, right? Because he
two.
Spoilers. Fonzie he makes it, but he crashes and he hurts his leg.
Right, and he ends up at the Cunningham's couch
Yeah,
for
he won't
a
leave.
week.
Yeah.
And the doctor makes a house call, and just the interaction between the doctor and Fonzie calling the doctor a nerd, and the doctor talking to the Cunningham saying, you got to get him off this couch. He's got your daughter's shortcake running all over the place. I just thought that was really, I thought it was funny.
Great episode.
Yeah.
This was also at a time when like motorcycles and stunts were pretty big. Like Evel Knievel
Yeah.
was around that same time that like the nation was captivated by people jumping over stuff on motorcycles.
Yeah.
When do you think that ended? What killed the fascination with Daredevils?
Gravity?
I think, yeah. I think it's still out there to a certain degree. You have like Nitro Circus, they do that kind of
you're
stuff.
right.
And somebody just recently jumped. They did like I thought they did the Snake Canyon jump or
Oh,
something. They
did
like
they?
succeeded. I think there's just too much out there. Like, think about how little was there that you're like, when people in 1976 are excited about tall ships coming into the harbor, anything is entertaining. So a guy jumping a motorcycle is like, well, this is awesome.
Number 4, one of the more famous episodes. And this one was it was called Hollywood.
I don't like that caveat. I don't like that caveat where you go.
All of a sudden, I'm disappointing again. Where's my notes here? It was called.
There aren't your notes. It's like
They're on the cloud. All right, this was called Hollywood Part 3. So it was a 3-part episode. You can see here I've got it broken down by parts.
damn.
These are like beats, like in a script.
Yeah.
Just beat it out.
This was where Fonzie jumps the shark, and where many people believe the series jumped the shark. It was season 5, episode 1, 2, and 3, but in episode 3 is where he physically jumped the shark.
What year would that be? 77? It has to be
77.
It has to be post Jaws, right? Or else they would never have used a shark.
It was 77.
And Fonzie is he's jumping the shark on water skis in his leather jacket.
Yeah, he was. And never been on water skis in his life. And he ends up beating, spoiler alert, he ends up beating the California kid who was a water skiing champion who lived in California. Fonzie was there a weekend and beats the champion.
Lives in Milwaukee.
Never saw the ocean at all.
Right.
Probably was never on ski. Well, maybe in Milwaukee you could have been on skis. Is there any mountains in Milwaukee that you would be on skis? I don't. But it's so. I don't want to toot my own horn, but at this point when I'm watching first run episodes when this airs, and I realize that something's desperately wrong with Happy Days. I'm like, this is not the show that I fell in love with.
Right.
I mean, again, I don't want to say that I was some sort of like brighter than normal kid, but
Or Bry.
but I just knew this was not the same show that I fell in love with like a couple years ago. It just felt like it was not. It just not the same.
Well, I think it's like, okay, so here you are getting older. Here's the show getting worse. And then it meets to where you're like, I'm not, like if you were younger, you might still accept me. Like, oh my God, Fonzie's great. He's jumping over sharks. But as you get older, you're like, all right, well, this is bullshit. You know, and especially comparatively to the other really good episodes.
Now, do you think Happy Days as a whole, like everybody involved with it, do you think everybody involved with Happy Days, do you think they like that the iconic phrase that's part of our lexicon,
Very good.
jumping the shark? Do you think that they look at that as a badge of honor, or do you think that they're kind of like they hate that, you know, Jump the Shark became based off that episode?
And I think at this point, I mean, you're talking 40 years later, they're probably okay with it, I would imagine. You know?
I hope so. I would hate to feel that they were carrying around any unnecessary guilt.
And I'll be honest, it seems like from when I was, doing the research on this, it seemed like everybody was good-hearted, just down to earth. I think they probably just went with it, and they probably were like, oh,
They're getting a paycheck, though. Like, I think they were cognizant that it was garbage. They're like, this is not the... I think like you, they're like, this is not the show that we started with. And it's becoming more and more cartoony, but this is
the ratings are crazy, though.
The ratings are great. It's a regular job. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to leave. Like, you see what happens to people who leave TV shows, and then they usually disappear.
Don't we know it?
Yeah. Look at this. Look at this guy.
On a green screen, stealing clips from a 40-year-old show, desperately trying to keep people on Patreon.
Trying to stay one step ahead of the FBI.
All right, so that was number 4.
So then
I'm really curious. I mean, there's got to be another Golden Age episode on your list, right?
You would hope, but no.
Oh.
It is actually my number 5 has got to be an episode called The Homecoming Part 2, otherwise known as The Fist Fight. That is most known for a fist fight between Richie Cunningham and Fonzie. This was a much later episode. It was a Bronze Era episode. It was season 11, episode 5, 1983.
And Richie's a good dude as well, because he would go back to do Andy Griffith reunions, and he would be a part of that because he was part of that cast as well. So he had loyalty to Happy Days, and if the Marshalls asked him to come back, he would come back and do some guest spots. But the Richie character in this two-parter is so foreign to the Richie character that when he left, it's like he's almost unrecognizable. He's so unhinged. He makes Brian look stable. I mean, he's so angry and so like pissed off at the world that like he's not the Richie that like we grew up on, and he's like, it's crazy.
He's shell shocked. He's coming back from Korea, I assume, right?
He's in the army,
but
but it's not because.
And I think you're right, Korea. Yeah.
But I don't think it's because he feels he's not his own man. He's not making his own decisions. It's not because he saw, some combatants blown to bits. It's because he can't. He wants to go right for television, and nobody will allow him.
He's like, I can't. Like, for some reason, he has to stick around with his family, maybe run the hardware business or whatever. Why does he feel compelled to stay?
His father gets him a newspaper job. And Richie doesn't.
My dad did that for me.
Actually, writing for newspapers, and and Mr. C thinks he's doing good by his son, but Richie has other plans. He's married. He has like an 8-year-old son, right?
Little Richard.
And
then there's one on the way.
But this particular two-parter is going to be the subject of a segment that I'm super excited to do. It's called Frank 5's Rewind.
Yes.
It's also the title of the podcast. So let's show the viewers the scene we're talking about where Richie and Fonzie get into it. And then we're going to rewind it. And then we're going to reenact it.
Can't wait.
Well, what a coincidence. Deja vu, huh? So what can I do for you? Get you another beer? Beach and pool, take you home, huh?
Yeah, right. Real coincidence. Why don't you do us both a favor and just get out?
I don't mind if I do, thanks. Beer here! So, have you thought of a name for your next child?
Buzz off.
Oh, you know it's a boy.
Look, I would really like to be alone right now.
No, you don't.
Let's get something straight, all right?
Yeah.
The days when the Fonz can come riding in and solve all my problems with a few choice words are long gone. So why don't you leave Amundo?
You're absolutely right. This is not a frosh mixer. I can't fix you up with a date, but you are my friend. We can talk about it, and I haven't said Amundo in a long time. Fine. You don't want to say anything? We won't talk. Then we'll go home. You know why? Because there are a lot of people worried about you.
I'll leave when I damn well feel like leaving.
Good plan. Good plan. Except something in my soul tells me that you want to leave right now. So, Richie, put the beer down and let's go home, okay? So we got that out of our systems, right? Come on, Richie, let's go.
I said I'll leave when I feel like it.
What are you, crazy? You think I'm gonna let you do that a second time?
I'm gonna get you to that fun.
Right.
I'm gonna kick your butt.
Right.
Fonz,
Yeah,
what am I doing? I'm going crazy.
it's okay. You're okay.
Deja you. What can I do you for, Red? Get you another beer? Beat you in pool? Take you home?
Buzz off. Go home when I damn well want to go home.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think that time's now, though. Come on. Your family's waiting for you at home. Let's go.
Said I'll go home when I damn well want to. Fonz, I'm losing my mind.
You're okay. You're okay. There's a lot of choices on your top 5 list that turn me away from Happy Days. I mean, I can recall, being in school, and the last thing I would ever do is go into school the next day and try to talk to the kids I was hanging out with about Fonzie. I mean, these guys were talking about getting drunk, listening to heavy metal music, and trying to bang girls, and I'm going to come in there and be like, "Hey, did you guys see when Fonzie tried to jump that shark, or he saved Joni from a runaway stagecoach?"
You'd be doing lip ups like that.
I mean, I'm ashamed to say that I totally turned my back, and there was so many seasons that I did not watch. But I will say, I did go back and watch them in reruns through MeTV and Antenna TV. I caught the entire run of Happy Days, and I fell in love with it again. I mean, it reinvigorated my passion for the show, and I will never, no matter how bad the silver and the bronze age may have been, it can never tarnish that golden age. It is so well done that there's nothing that can touch it. It can never be taken away from them how great it was, and I will never turn my back on Fonzie ever again.
Next class reunion, you go to all those people and you're like, "We're talking about this. Fuck your heavy metal. Forget your girls."
Right.
So it's funny that you mentioned turning your back on Happy Days and Fonzie. In our final clip, we have an episode called AKA Fonzie, and this is the episode in which we have a dirty cop.
Kirk.
Yeah, Kirk is trying to run Fonzie out of town for looking like a hood. But Kirk soon realizes that he's not the only hood that he has to deal with.
I'm gonna leave town tonight.
You're leaving town? Wait a minute, this is a trick.
Hey, there are no tricks. You lay off my friends, I'll leave town.
You mean if I leave your friends alone?
That's right. As long as Mr. C gets back his loading zone, I'll leave town.
He'll get his loading zone.
Hey, don't point at me. That's not polite.
I all said you were so tough. You're a beaten man, Fonzarelli.
Whatever you say, crew cut.
You are the last of the ducktails and leather jackets.
Oh, yeah? What about me, Kirk? If you run Fonzie out of town, I'll be taking his place.
If you come looking for a one-way ticket out of Milwaukee, you came to the right place, fella.
You might even run me out of town, Kirk. but there'll be another one to take my place. And another one. You won't be able to get rid of us. They'll come from all walks of life. Store owners. Children.
Teenagers.
Housewives.
Comic book store clerks.
Merchants and townspeople.
College professors.
Unemployed reality stars.
Oh, I feel like I'm in a World War II movie and the sky's full of planes.
Sunday, Monday, happy days.
I want to thank everybody for watching Frank 5's Rewind. Walt, what can we expect for future episodes?
Well, Frank 5's Rewind is actually a mini-series. There's only 3 episodes planned right now, but if demand is there, we will do more. Do you guys recall the very first mini-series you ever watched on TV?
I do. It was Roots, which I believe is not as historically important as Frank 5's Rewind.
That's Frank 5's Rewind. May trump Roots when it's all said and done.
May?
Well, since it is a mini-series, I wanted to ensure that we go out with a bang. I've secured big-time celebrity as a special guest on the last episode. The initials BQ. He's already picked out his television show that he wants to cover. And do you have a sign-off for Frank 5's Rewind?
Not yet, no.
How about this? This is Frank 5 signing off. And remember, please be kind and always rewind. But you gotta look at the camera and deliver that with a smile.
I love it.
Go ahead.
This is Frank 5
signing off.
Signing off. Please be kind and rewind.
Always rewind. Good night.
It's called Do the Fonzie.
That's right. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Ready?
How's it go again?
To the right.
Okay.
To the left. Kick. Down. Up. Clap. To the right. To the left. Cross them. Pull it back. Yeah. Again. To the right. To the left. Kick. Down.
If mannequins could
Clap.
dance.
Cross them. Pull it back. Yeah.